up for the wonderful Mike Lawrence! I'm destroying the stage, not with my ass, but just like physically.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Oh man, thanks for having me. I'm so happy that gay marriage is legal. I think it's awesome. Yeah. I know. Starting off liberal at a comedy show, ballsy move. I'm doing it. I remember the night that gay marriage was made legal a couple weeks ago. I was like, "Love wins, everybody!" And someone yells, "Yeah, 5-4 decision," and just immediately ruined it. The thing is, I'm not homophobic at all. I look at homophobia the same way I look at skydiving. I would never do it myself, but everybody who does looks like they're having a great time. And I love how the world's changing. I think it's awesome. I love that transgender people have more rights. I went to high school with a transgender woman. I knew her as John. She is Audrey now. She recently called me to tell me about her transitioning. She was like, "I was always meant to be a woman. It's who I am. And if you have any questions about it, let me know." And I was like, "Yeah, I lent John my copy of Happy Gilmore on DVD 10 years ago, and I never got it back." And she was like, "John never really existed because I was always meant to be Audrey." And I was like, "That's a real bitch move." And she was like, "Thank you for accepting me." I got married recently, guys. I got married. Really? That's it? Guys. If someone who looks like this says they got married, people should be throwing little people up in the air who high-five each other. There should be t-shirt cannons that also shoot out reggaeton music. And someone should cradle me and say, "That'll do, pig. That'll do." What website was it? Okay, Cupid. I love my wife. I would never cheat on my wife. Although I find it weird, the only way you can cheat on someone is sexually. I don't like that. I think cheating should be the thing you do the most with the person. Like, I'd be way more upset if I walked in and I saw my wife encouraging someone else's false dreams. You know? Like, that's our thing, you know? I'd be way angrier if she used her cute voice and nickname on someone else. I just come home and she's like, "Who's the cuddly buddy with the tum-tum?" And I'd be like, "You whore!" Because sex has been like 13 and a half minutes of the marriage, and that's rounding up. I'm not good at sex. I want to get better. I was looking at this thing called the sexual bucket list, the 50 most important sexual things every woman wants before she dies. Number one on this list, masturbate. Someone wrote masturbate on a bucket list in case they forget to do it. Has anyone here ever forgotten to masturbate? I've forgotten to shower because I remembered to masturbate. There's another one, it's my favorite one. With your partner, play strip poker / strip Monopoly. Has anyone here ever played strip Monopoly? No, because you'd still be doing it. Could you imagine how frustrating it would be to play strip Monopoly? You're 9.5 hours in. There is one sock off, and the only chest that's been touched is community. I did that joke in Kentucky recently, and this woman was like, "I played strip Monopoly." I was like, "No, you were just with an old man in a top hat and a monocle who threw pennies at you." I'll tell you a story. The first time I ever said, "I love you," it did not involve an old man with a top hat and a monocle. No, it was on an AOL chat room, of course. My screen name was Poetic 15 because I was a poetic 15-year-old and I wanted the world to knows it. And also AOL rejected my first screen name, The Jizz Blossoms. But I'm in the chat room, I'm spouting my poems, and this girl, Iguana Lover 69, comes in. She's like, hey, I like your poems. I'm like, why don't we move this to a private chat? And I realized that sounds more like a Seinfeld bass guitar. And less like an erotic bass guitar. Let's do it. So we're in the private chat. I'm like, what are you into? She's like, comic books. I'm like, me too. I'm like, what else? She's like, poetry. I'm like, me too. I'm like, anything else? She's like, you and your smile. I'm like, I love you. 27 minutes in, it was time stamped. I was like, why don't we meet up sometime, like at a coffee shop or something? She's like, why don't I meet you at your place at 164 Paradise Way? I'm like, how do you know where I live? She's like, I know many things about you, including your father's credit card information. So then I gotta bring my dad in. He's furious. He's like, trying to find love again in the AOL chat rooms. What did I tell you about this? We ask all these questions, we get no answer back. My dad cancels all his credit cards. We get a knock at the door. 30 minutes later, it's my brother, and he just goes, Iguana Lover 69! I was incestuously chatfished, alright? The worst thing about this was, me and my brother were never close growing up because I thought he never understood me as a person. And in the 27 minutes I talked to Iguana Lover 69, he said everything I ever wanted to hear someone say. And it's the worst thing to realize that your brother's a douchebag, but an incredible listener. I go see a lot of movies. I try to avoid it. I recently saw American Sniper, and I won't say it's my favorite Toby Keith song, but it is the longest one. I don't think it was directed by Clint Eastwood as much as it was directed by Clint Eastwood's character from Gran Torino. That movie is racist, and there is a scene where Bradley Cooper's holding a baby, and he looks at the camera and he goes, this is what we fight for. And they do a zoom-in shot, and you realize that the baby's as fake as the reasons we went to Iraq in the first place. And you're like, this movie's taking me out of multiple narratives. I do love this country. I want it to be a little better. Like, gun control could be a little better. I'm not saying a lot better, a little better. Like, how many lives would we save if you had to bring just 2 people with you to buy a gun? Just so they knew you knew them, you know? Like, how much better would it be if you had to answer no when they asked you, have you written an online manifesto in the last year? Because there's never been a good online manifesto. At worst it's, this is why black people are awful, and at best it's, this is why the Thundercats deserve their own film franchise. I am a nerd. I'm excited about Batman vs Superman, really excited. Yeah, because it's the perfect movie if you're a child of divorce. It's your 2 favorite people you love growing up, and now they're fighting and it's not your fault. I grew up poor. The best thing about being poor is you're never attacked in horror movies. It's true! Freddy Krueger never attacks poor people because their dreams are too sad for him to invade. There's just some guy sitting around who's like, one of these days I'm gonna be assistant manager of this Waffle House. And Freddy Krueger's like, I can't kill what's already dead. I had the worst job ever. I worked at McDonald's for 7.5 years. You can see all about it in the new movie Minimum Wage of Ultron. And I was on stage recently and I said to the audience, I was like, I bet I've had the worst job of anyone here and no one could top it. And this one guy goes, oh yeah, well I did 3 tours in Afghanistan. I was like, oh yeah? Well, I served my country for 7.5 years at McDonald's. Then this woman in the back yelled out, Wendy's for 18, bitches. The soldier stood up, saluted us both, and said, "I've never seen such courage and bravery in all of my life." I'll leave you with this. Do you love when a comic says that? I'll leave you with this. My father's locket avenged me. If we get offended tonight, remember these are just jokes. And people died for jokes this year. And that's an important thing to remember. It's a scary thing to remember. It's the most terrifying thing that happened about the incident in France earlier this year is that those terrorists had no sense of humor at all. And I would love if it turned out that they did have a sense of humor, and it was just the worst sense of humor of all time. Like if we went to an ISIS cell and found a bunch of Reba DVDs. Garfield calendars, and they're like, there's two things that Allah hates the most: Jews and Mondays. Like, if their favorite show of all time was Full House, and they just quote it inappropriately all the time, and they're like, what does the Quran say we should do with the clitoris? Cut it out! I know that was offensive, but sometimes the goal in comedy is to write jokes you know no one will steal from you. Thanks, guys.